at the bottom of the cul-de-sac was this UFO.
We lifted up the covers underneath my bed and stuck that large bulbous head under there and looked at me with those big black eyes. At that point, the alien started to move toward me, and at that moment, only at that moment, did I feel complete, absolute, stark terror.
The year was 1971. I was a year and 3 months old. It was my granddaddy's birthday, and me, my mom, my two older brothers who are 11 and 9 years older than me, respectively, and me and my younger sister who was a year and 4 days younger than myself, we'd all come home for my granddaddy's birthday celebration. So my mom was upstairs putting me and my sister to bed. She was patting us to sleep like she always did. When my brothers realized that they forgot some of their change on the windowsill downstairs. So they went to get it. And all of a sudden, one of my brothers started screaming, Mom, a UFO, a flying saucer. She's like, boy, what you talking about? Ain't no flying saucer. And so they come tearing up the stairs, and we lived on a cul-de-sac. And so they pulled apart the Venetian blinds, and there at the bottom of the cul-de-sac was this UFO. And so like we all went downstairs. So my whole family was there except for my dad, who was at work. And we were standing on the porch, and it was hovering about, I don't even know how many yards. I'm not good with yards, but like 3 houses over. And it was completely silent. It was like luminescent, like the color of a moon. And then it had like this red light that was just like reverberating. And it was one of my earliest memories. And the thing about it is that when I saw it, I got so excited because I thought to myself, you came just like you promised, you came. So, since I was really young, I have to rely also upon my family members' recollections. So I asked my mom like many years ago later, I was like, Mom, so you remember seeing that? She's like, of course I remember seeing it. She's like, I didn't just see the ship. She saw the being that was driving the ship or flying the ship. And so she said she remembered getting really scared because the door closed behind her and she thought we might have gotten locked out. But she said that it hovered there for a few moments and then it disappeared. But my brother Greg told me that's not what happened. He said that they actually came and took us. So my mom called the cops, and of course they thought she was crazy. She called the news station, and same thing. And you know, that night, like my family saw it, and I have learned that they followed down the familial line. So my mom has seen them as a child, and I saw them. And that night, the next neighborhood over, my mom's sister and her kids saw them too. And then the next day in Cincinnati, it was like they were racing back and forth across the sky. Like there's a lot of sightings in Cincinnati. Actually, the MUFON, it's the Mutual UFO Network. They study the UFO phenomenon, and they're based in Cincinnati. So anyway, my brothers went to school the next day. They got teased so badly that they never talked about it again, except for my brother, Greg, who talked about it to his science teacher. But because I was so young, like I had no problem talking about it at all. When I was a little girl, I remember like dancing around the living room table and I'd be like, I saw a UFO, I saw a UFO, I saw a flying saucer, I saw a flying saucer. And then when I was little, me and my sister Denise, I remember we used to be in the basement and we were looking at Parliament's Funkadelic album, and it was the one with all the Afro Nubians from outer space. And I used to tell my sister, I was like, you know why they're landed down the street is because like that's my family. I mean, like I'm your family too, but that's my family, and that's why they're here. So I don't know how old I was, but as soon as I was old enough to have permission to go out and play on my own, I used to go down the street to my brother's best friend's backyard. His name was Freddie. And the thing about Freddie that I remember about him is that he was the only white kid on our street. He had like bright red hair and he loved to climb trees. Like, I don't know, he was like Tarzan. But I remember every time I would go to his family's house and I would ask for permission to play in their backyard. And one of the reasons that I remember this so well is that I used to love to walk around barefoot. So every time I would go to their house, I would always stump my big toe and it would bleed like all the time. So I would always ask permission to go to their backyard. And finally they said, you know what, Dara, you don't have to ask permission anymore. You can just go back there anytime you want to. So in Freddie's backyard, there was this huge circle on the ground, this patch of earth where nothing grew. And I spent countless hours there, like sitting next to it or standing next to this circle, and this being would speak with me. And it would tell me all these kinds of things. Like, I can't remember everything because I know they gave me some kind of instructions, but they told me I was going to grow up and I was going to have a hard time in adolescence, which I did. I'm not going to go into all that because that's not what this is about. But they told me I was going to be a famous singer and actress, and that they needed me to help save the earth because the earth was desperately, direly in trouble. And so one day there were, well, me and my sister Denise, you know, she used to always be with me because we're just like what we called Irish twins. We're just a year and 4 days apart. So, but one day all the kids in my neighborhood were together and I gathered them around the circle. And they could hear the voice too. And the voice was saying, like, I remember Denise running across the circle and I'm like, get off, you're gonna hurt it, you're gonna hurt it. So everybody could hear the voice, and the voice said to me, do you want to hear my dog bark? And I said, yeah, let me hear your dog bark. And so like all of a sudden this dog started barking. And Freddie had a dog, but it wasn't his dog. He had a little wiener dog. It wasn't his dog. And it didn't sound like any of the dogs in the neighborhood. It sounded like it was coming from under the ground. So one of the teenage boys was like, oh man, this is just a joke. Like Freddie just trying to trick us. He just trying to trick us. And the voice said, no, it's not a joke and it's not a trick, and I'll prove it to you. And then out of nowhere, this big white pillar candle appeared in the middle of the ground lit. It stayed there for a few moments and then it disappeared. So that memory has stuck with me throughout my life. And Freddie, he ended up moving, and I still went and played in his backyard because not only was the circle there, but he also had like those playground, those swing sets, but he didn't have any swings on it. And I was going to be a gymnast, so I was practicing my gymnastics on it. And there was this woman that lived in the house behind him, and she started yelling at me. She's like, "Get out of that yard, get out of that yard." And I was like, I was so confused because I was like, but I have permission to be here. And she's like, "I don't care if you have permission. You get out of that yard right now and you never come back. Do you understand me?" And I was like so freaked out. I ran home. And when I was in fourth grade, I was a Girl Scout. So I was going door to door selling Girl Scout cookies back when that was still safe to do. And I knocked on this lady's door. I didn't realize it was her house. And she opened the door and she looked at me and she said, "You're that little girl that's always in the backyard, aren't you? You stay away from that backyard. Do you understand me? You stay away." And again, I was so scared, like I ran. And I've never gone back to that backyard for a long time. My family moved when I was 11. And I have this thing with the number 1111 because I was born in a house that was 11. That was the address. And then when I moved, I was 11. Even though my family still owned the house and my cousins lived there, like I never went to that backyard. But when and I kind of forgot about what happened until I was about 16 years old, and I was crossing the threshold of my new house. And I was just walking across the living room, and then all of a sudden, I don't know, like this voice in my head or something said, "Do you remember what happened back then?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, cool. We're not going to do anything with it right now. I just want to make sure you remember it." And so I forgot all about that until I moved. I went to college. I moved to San Francisco, and I had this dream where I was on this mountaintop. I was with a bunch of other people, like part of a group, and something happened where like this doll was placed in my hand. And you know how like in the movies where people can like be zoomed back and forth and back and forth? So I felt like I was zoomed away from people, like, or they were zoomed away from me, like I was an outcast. And I was like, I don't understand what the problem is. We all have this ability. So I remember when I was 10 years old, I would stand at that same windowsill where my brothers forgot their change, and I would every single night like stare down the house at Freddie's house, like up at the sky, waiting for them to come back. They told me they were going to come back, but it was going to be a really long time, like decades, and I was going to be really afraid when they came.
So when your mother saw the bean, what did she perceive it to be? What did it look like? What did she say it was? How did she feel when she saw it? Like, just like describe the bean itself.
She said that she felt like they were looking at us and that, it's basically similar to what you would see in like the books. Um, you know, like a humanoid. But I know she says she wants to go on UFO, but I know she was really afraid.
So what the experts seem to think, or at least the ones that I spoke to, is that the beings that were driving these things, or that drive these things, or that control these things are they call them aliens because we don't know what to call them, right? But they think that they're
Right.
entities that have been here before humans. So that being said,
Yes.
you know, according to the Bible, the beings that were here before us were angels or fallen angels, or you know, different kinds of who knows. The only things that are ever talked about on the Bible are giants and nephilims and angels. So in that being said, that those entities could take on different forms, right? And they have different assignments, and they have different. So one thing that is consistent with people that we speak to that have experienced aliens is that they have uh, gifts. They have an ability to see things that most of us don't see with our naked eyes. They have an ability to experience things that we don't have. So, like the familiar thing that you talk about, that is also true of gifts, right? That God gives us, like, you know, the ability to hear, the ability to see, the ability to sense, that kind of a deal. It's also hereditary. Like if your grandma was like able to see angels, you're going to see angels, kind of a deal.
Hmm.
What do you think that circle on the ground was? Do you feel like that was a portal?
Yes, I do believe that that was a portal. I I absolutely do believe that with all my heart. I do.
So that being said, the portals are like powerful, right? And I'm guessing that your neighbor, or the neighbor, was really scared because, you know, they say that even if you see an angel, you're gonna get scared because it's like a being that you've never seen before, and it's like, you know, it they come in different shapes and sizes and all the colors of the universe. So like if she saw it, she might have not known what it was, so she might have gotten scared that she saw things coming and going from that hole or whatever. um I'm just guessing. But that being said, do you think, what do you think that aliens are to your perception?
I believe that they are I believe that they are angels. For me personally, as I said, I have an affinity towards the number 1111. And I'm just speaking about my own personal experience because I know other people have not felt that way. But, and I also agree with you that about the gifts that are hereditary. Before I was born, my my mother's maternal grandmother said to her, she asked her, May, how are your girls doing? And she said, I don't have any girls, you know. She's like, I got two boys. And she kept asking her, and she got really upset because my mom wasn't answering her. But then, you know, she did have two girls, and bless her heart, she, I don't know, I feel like I remember being told that she said Dara has the gift, she can see. And then she also said, you know, Dara's going to grow up to be a singer because her voice is so hoarse and raspy. So I don't know how she knew that. But yes, I do believe that they are angels because of what they told me about helping to save the earth, which we all know is in such horrible condition right now.
And and listening to you, and this is just, I'm like in a weird place in my life where everything is not just the way it seems. Like to me, yeah, like lately, like in the last year, God's showed me so many things that you just go about your life and you don't really pay attention to them. But then like God gives you wisdom and you turn around and you're like, wait a minute, that's what that was this whole time. Um, there's this thing that says that with the coming of our second coming of our Christ Jesus, right? So they're saying that there's like, it's always like the end is near, the end is near, the end is near. God doesn't have the same timeline as we do. Like as far as time to God is like non-existent because he's God. But to them, holy beings, the end is near. To them it's like imminent, like, oh my gosh, it's going to happen like any minute now, right? Because again, in the Bible it says it'll come like a thief in the night and it'll just happen. um, that being said, we've also heard from other people that experienced aliens that is the pressing matter, the time. Like you're running out of time, you're running out of time, and only because of the way they say that there's going to be like, and it's not going to be like the world's going to explode or anything. It's just that there's going to be like a renewal of, like the Mayans have this thing in the Aztecs that there's like a cleansing, like that those people have gone and moved to history and then like a new people come, and it doesn't mean that people just disappear, but you know what I mean, like there's like a renewal of a people. And that is what everybody that I've spoken to talks about alien wise. Like it's like this time in this space and time is about to end, like get ready for it kind of a deal. That being said, right, what are your thoughts on what the end means to them and to you? Because I'm sensing that they left a perception in your heart about what that means. So tell me, like, I know about pollution and all that, but like in the whole sense, what do you think it means time is ending?
Well, I remember as a child, I think when I was given my instructions, I remember this immense sadness where, because of what humans have done to this earth, a lot of us are going to be lifted and taken away. And I don't know what happens after that, but I do know that it's very urgent. Um, so while I'm here, I know my task is to spread the word, tell my story, even though I'm not famous yet, but maybe this will help. But um, yes, I do believe it's time. We have to take responsibility, and it makes me very sad, but I don't believe this is the first time that this has happened on this earth. And I just have to learn what my part is, and it's time for me to do it, whatever it is.